happy to be joined now by Browns quarterback Dillon Gabriel. And Dillon, it's great to see you again. How you been?
Good to see you. I'm good. I'm doing well.
All right, a weekend. We've had a weekend. Biggest difference between the NFL and college?
Yeah, I think more than anything, just things speed up. And I think for a college player transitioning to the NFL, there's hashes, there's rules, there's 2-minute rules that you have to be aware of. But most importantly, personnel-wise, there's the best of the best. But that's what you look forward to as a competitor, and things speed up. That's the rush. Linebackers being, very intelligent in understanding the leverage, and then corners and DBs just being super athletic. So I think the fun part, though, is, too, we got the same on our side. So a lot to learn and grow from, but all good things.
In college, I would have to imagine your favorite 2-minute rule is that if you get a first down, there's at least going to be a temporary pause of the clock,
For sure.
whereas now it's crazy chaos, right?
Yeah, it's definitely different. And in college, you're thinking first down, touchdown, out of bounds. Here
first down does not.
Yeah, first down.
It's nice to get the yards.
Yeah,
it's nice to get
doesn't
the yards.
apply. So just got to understand what's more important, yards or time on the clock.
You mentioned kind of the speed. Do you find that you have to be maybe more anticipatory with your throws in the sense, like in college, especially with the scheme you guys had in Oregon, just taking last year, and obviously you were successful in many, many places, but guys are pretty open a lot of the time. That is not as often the case here in the National Football League.
For sure. And I think, for any player, it's understanding your scheme and what you're trying to accomplish. But within plays, there's checks, there's alerts, that things that can get you to a certain progression a lot quicker. And I think just educating yourself, getting more comfortable with it, and then having it translate from the classroom to the field. I think that's important too. So any way we can continue to talk about it, one concept that can really get you to a certain route faster, I think that can all speed up your process on top of anticipating a certain throw within their, route.
How are you doing just with calling the plays in the huddle? I mean, that's a thing I think that everybody takes for granted, but you're learning a completely different language. You're not looking to the sideline. Everybody's not looking to the sideline. You have to go in there and basically tell everybody everything, and actually not just say the words right, which is part of it, but know what they all mean.
Yeah, I think in college you're so used to a signal and that being your visualization of a concept and it coming into fruition, in a play. But, I joke around, but my fiance, she's really like, the best in terms of helping study and hearing something, saying it, but not only saying it and repeating it, but also being able to, paint a picture for yourself when you're walking up to the line of scrimmage. So she's been a big help on that, but that's just part of it. There's no way around it, just through. And the more reps you get at it, the more comfortable you get with it.
Do you guys do like flashcards and stuff?
Flashcards we've done. She gets the iPad, she's calling the plays, and then I'm, repeating it back. But the walkthroughs in the living room, in front of the couch, or laying in bed, and I'm trying to visualize the whole thing. She's been very helpful with that.
I know you do not have the time right now, but in this season of quarterbacks, they go around with Kirk Cousins, Jared Goff, and Joe Burrow. I don't know if you've seen any of it, but Jared Goff's been in the league a long time.
Yep.
He does the same thing with his wife, flashcards every week talking about it, because you have to have that complete mastery of it and the ability to communicate with such conviction that everybody in the huddle, A, knows what they're supposed to do, and B, believes that you know what they're supposed to do.
Well, the beauty in it is when you get to a point where you're just saying it and you're already thinking about the play, and can worry about what's going to happen, pre-snap, then you eliminate all stress of calling a play.
How much different is it for you pre-snap in terms of the ownership that you have and the ability to make the checks and kind of dictate, you said, get to the concepts that are going to work based on the looks that you're seeing?
Well, thank goodness for Oregon. I think early in my career at UCF and Oklahoma, we sacrificed maybe longer play calls and getting into the right call with tempo. So with tempo, you get people not being set, maybe a lot less coverage variation.
Sure.
But, at Oregon, we kind of played with alerts, kills, cans, the whole
That's
nine.
helpful.
And then, a longer play call to get in, advantage check. So that's been a good help for me in my transition to the NFL, but definitely needed, and glad I got, both sides of the offense.
Yeah, when you come in with a fellow rookie, as you have with Shedeur, and he, I don't think, had some of those experiences that you did, and I'm sure you've been able to help, and Joe's been able to help, and Kane's been able to help, but I don't think people realize what a change it is. Everybody thinks about, when you watch, for example, you watch all 22 tape. You're watching the game in complete silence.
Yep.
You get to kind of see what the quarterback sees, how they react to the play itself. But there is so much that goes into the National Football League for sure, and you said you got some of this at Oregon, before the ball's ever snapped from the time that the play's called in, and that's why they try to get the play in quick, so you have that time to play that cat and mouse game often with the mic. That not having that experience, that's such a big part of this game that you can't see on tape.
For sure, and it's important, I think, in order to get yourself into advantage checks and calls to where you're running against things you want to run against, right? And I think we do a great job of it, but more importantly, just the reps we get at it. Everyone's getting better at it, and you can see that. What's
been your favorite concept so far?
I think I'll keep it as simple as passing the ball. I love throwing it, but I think we've done a great job of consistently marrying the both run and the pass. And I think we've been extremely versatile without it being too much and too heavy on a lot of guys, so you can see a lot of guys just go and play. But I'm just very appreciative that we have that. We're very thoughtful of how we name our concepts, kind of build our whole offense, and it makes it easy for us. When we hear a word, it triggers a thought and a visualization. But for me, I think any of the three-level pass, and a lot of the progression game that we've obviously done pretty good at thus far.
And you've done great on what we call keepers here, right?
Yep.
And moving the pocket, and you're very comfortable on the run. We saw that certainly watching your tape. But when did you get so proficient going right as a left-handed quarterback? Because that's the thing, obviously, for right-handed quarterbacks. How can they go left in those keeper games? Because you need to keep the defense honest with it.
Yeah, I think, just being a lefty, and in high school, college, obviously my whole life, but in maybe a right-handed game, our coaches that I've been,
they naturally call those boots
right.
right.
They're calling it right, and they're not thinking, once about it. So I just adjust, and I've done it all my life. So it's been pretty helpful for me to go right, go left, and they always say you got to be able to go, each side to, really keep the defense honest.
You had one a couple days ago where you went right, flipped the hips, and hit Jerry Jeudy. That was just a beautifully executed play, and you seem very comfortable, obviously, on the move both directions.
For sure. I think that's another thing that I love about what we do is moving the pocket, but most importantly, just moving the launch point. And the NFL's got a bunch of great defensive linemen, or guys who rush the quarterback, and I think anytime you can make them uncomfortable with your cadence, your launch points, but also just the versatility, you got to do that consistently.
One change I would imagine from college is that, I'm going to guess, I could be wrong, I don't know Oregon's roster that well, or Oklahoma's or UCF's, but have you ever had a 6'6" center before?
I have had a lot of tall tackles, but not a 6'6" center.
Sometimes you're like, Ethan, get down a little bit, brother.
Yeah, I've had 6'9" tackles, 6'10". I've luckily been able to play with 3 first-round tackles, so been around some good old linemen for sure.
Some big dudes. Is that anything that you've noticed from in the pocket? Just you making sure you get your depth because you've got such massive humanity in front of you, or making sure that obviously there was one where they did a great job. They blocked kind of inside from the inside and down, kicked out, and you had a nice slant that you were able to get that throwing lane.
Yeah, I think it all runs up with your pass pro
totally.
and your protections. There's going to be a short side or a slide side and a man side. With those full slides, usually you're moving the pocket anyways to create a throwing lane. So, I think it's fancy when people say, oh, quarterbacks are creating throwing lanes, but for the most part, in protection, you get that to happen with, whether defensive line games or you got a slide side, you got a man side. So just depends how it mirrors up with your concepts.
I feel like you're liking the one where we look like it's a pull action, but he's actually coming to block the backside for you. That's a fun concept.
100%.
You like that. All right, you guys go live. So you may not know this, or maybe somebody did tell you. That's the first time since Kevin Stefanski has been here that we have had a live period in a training camp.
Really?
So this is obviously a very different camp. Is he talking about callous the mind, callous the body? You went out there. You had a beautiful timing on the screen to Harold Fannin, the rookies hooking up, and then Gage Larvidan weaving, bobbing, getting in the end zone. The team goes nuts. How good did it feel kind of in real football to lead the team down for a touchdown?
Yeah, it feels good. I think it's hard to be able to create, momentum in some of these periods in practice because it's 4-play racks. Are you truly getting a move the ball type period? And whenever you can, kind of get that move the ball period going, you can create rhythm, you can create flow and momentum for the offense. And I think you saw that within our move the ball period.
So it's a weekend. How much more comfortable do you feel now than if I had done this before day one of training camp?
Different a little bit, and that's just the unknown. But
Yeah.
I think, for me, it's now just getting comfortable with the unknown. And, I've never played in a preseason game or, my first season game. So there's a lot of things you learn on the fly. But that's why you ask the vets a bunch of questions and make sure you ask the right ones so that you can, figure out what's the best way to proceed.
How excited are you to get some reps next week coming up, travel to Charlotte, take on the Carolina Panthers and a defense that doesn't know everything that you're doing, doesn't know every concept, doesn't know every look, and maybe get a little bit more of a fair for the offense type of a feel out there?
Yeah, I think it's fun. This is what we live for as competitors. This is why you do it. We love practice, we love grinding, but ultimately it's a results-based business, and you go out there and you show what you can do. So I think a lot of guys are excited to do that. We are as an offense, we are as a defense, but collectively as a unit and as a team, I think we're really excited to go make it happen.
Well, we're certainly excited. It's been a lot of fun watching you
sure.
out here so far in training camp. Next week we'll get to Charlotte, see you against the Panthers, and
Yes, sir.
your first preseason game should be a lot of fun. Dillon, thanks so much for the time. Good luck.
Thank you.